Morning, everyone. I wish I was in class with you guys. I wish I could deliver this message to you in person. I think it's always better when we're face to face than through a video or through a screen, but nevertheless, I thought it was important to just have a chat with you, a conclusion of your sophomore year of history class. There would have been no better time to have a face-to-face history class than through a global pandemic, than through civil unrest, through a recessed economy, political upheaval, just for the point of being able to be there and explain everything that's going on. Unfortunately, the pandemic has required us to stay home. And so I'm not going to explain everything, but I wanted to give you maybe some things to think about as you rest and relax and recharge your battery over the summer. We don't know, by the way, what's going to happen in the fall. We may be doing remote instruction. It's a possibility. It's a possibility we may be in school, possibility we may be doing a hybrid. Nobody knows. Not even Dr. Adderhold knows, and he's been very clear to tell everybody about that. So we're just going to have to deal with whatever we get. And maybe that's kind of the message. One of the things that, you may have heard this expression before, but one of the things that tests a person's character is when they're under duress. You get to see what that person's really made of. We've had a lot of duress since we've been on break, and we've seen the worst of humanity, and we've seen the best of humanity. I saw a video of a bunch of healthcare workers that basically called a cab driver into the hospital for a pickup. And this guy had been delivering COVID patients for free. I don't know, something like, 50, 60 COVID patients, free fares, because they were sick, taking them to the hospital. And all the healthcare workers collected money for him and presented him with a gift for his heroism, really, taking people to the hospital despite taking the risk of maybe getting COVID himself. This is an older guy, and an immigrant, by the way. We're talking about immigration in the last few weeks, who, went above and beyond. And then, of course, I don't have to go further than the protests. And while the protests themselves haven't been bad, they've been good, the peaceful ones, we've had violence, and we've had multiple factions of people destroying property and so forth for the point of making a political statement. We've seen the news. We've seen how polarized the news is. We've seen how polarized our government is. I think, so there's a couple messages that I have for you. One is about character. If you had to have somebody reflect on your life and have them characterize how you behave when the chips are down, how do you want it to be? The thing is, the choice is, you get to write that story. You get to determine that outcome. Think about that for a second. You get that choice. So, how does this apply to you? Well, it could apply to you with regard to how you're handling your schoolwork. Right? The temptation to do nothing, you're home, this isn't fair, it's not the same environment as regular school is, I'm not getting the help that I need. I understand that. But if you decide you're going to pack it in versus fight harder to try to get what you need so you can succeed, that's the difference that I'm talking about. Okay? This has been awkward for everybody. This has been a huge burden on teachers, to be honest with you. I won't get into that, but we figured it out for the most part. All right? Might not have been smooth, but we got it done. And that's really the hallmark of this human being we call an American, in my view. Somehow we're going to figure out how to get it done. Somehow I figure with these racial issues, you know what? Black lives do matter. They absolutely matter. And if you have injustice for some, you have injustice for all. We're going to figure it out. I recently saw a town hall with President Obama. And President Obama said he was actually optimistic about it, what he was seeing. I got to be honest with you, as a history teacher and as somebody who's seen racism and teaches about it, slavery and all this other kind of stuff, was what I've been watching was disheartening. And his view was encouraging and optimistic. And why? He said during the civil rights movement, there were mostly black people marching for black rights, a few white people. Now what we see is a broad coalition of people. We see blacks and whites and males and females and different religions and different gender identities and whatever race, color, creed, whatever you want to call it. There's so many different people that are fighting alongside our African American brothers and sisters that is so encouraging and optimistic. And while there may be more pain to be had, the dog's agreeing with me, by the way. While there may be more pain and more violence and more bad things that we'd see, I think we have to have faith, and I think we have to do our thing. You know, I think young people can get involved in spreading messages of peace rather than spreading messages of violence. Young people can get involved, of course, certainly, hopefully if there's anything that proves to you that your vote matters, these issues do. So you should be registered to vote when you're 18, and you should get to the ballot box and start making a difference. The last thing I want to mention to you is, you know, Christmas time I played you the speech from Dr. Martin Luther King, and I know half of you were like a little sleepy and whatever. But it's, you know, more than 50 years after that message, and the message still rings true. I told you it's one of my favorite speeches of all time. And I'll remind you of one of the lines. One of the lines is, and he talks about like how when you wake up in the morning, how you have your coffee and that's brought to you by somebody from South America, and your soap is from an Englishman, and your sponge is from a Frenchman, and your bread is from a baker, and before you've even had breakfast, you've been in contact with half the world. He uses that analogy to talk about the interdependence of people. You can't separate the root from the tree. It's all part of the same thing. If you sow hate, you'll grow hate. If you sow peace, you'll grow peace. And then as individuals, we are all connected to one another, whether we like it or not. Right? I know that I'm probably not thrilled with your teachers at some point during this virtual instrument. Maybe not thrilled with me. I get that. Guess what? I haven't been thrilled with all of you either. But I feel an obligation to do my job. I feel an obligation to have you learn. Doesn't mean I don't care about you all. I do. And sometimes, you know, there's that tough love thing. But I realize that my job here, I'm interdependent, right? I need you, you need me. I need you because it gives me a purpose and focus, and I feel like I'm making my contribution to the world by teaching young people, by giving them an education, by giving them the tools that they need to understand what's happening in our world today. I told you that AS1 might be the most important course you'll take in high school, and I still believe that to be true. Look at what's happening. What are you going to do with those tools? And how are you going to help out your neighbor, your brother, your sister, your friend? Random people that you don't even know. Because we're interdependent. We're linked together. Your actions carry consequences with other people. There's no more evidence of it now. Don't wear a face mask, catch COVID. Catch COVID, pass COVID. Right? I mean, that's the simplest example. But it's there. I'm not trying to scare you about that, by the way. Just take precautions. There's all kinds of news about that. Face masks don't work. Face masks do work. You need to stand 6 feet. No, you need to stand 14 feet. No, you need to stand 18 feet. Look, just be careful. Take responsibility for yourself because your actions impact others. I'm having this discussion because I finally want to see my dad. They've relaxed restrictions. We're going to social distance dinner next week. But my son wants to go see some friends, and my father's nervous. He's 74 years old. He's nervous. If he goes see friends and he catches COVID, what about me? And I got to get my son thinking about that. His actions can carry consequences. How would he feel if he brought something home that he gave to my father and put him in the hospital or maybe even ended his life? Our actions carry consequences. So we'll talk about that and hopefully we'll get it ironed out so that everybody's comfortable about it. We have to think about other people. The moment we don't think about other people, they're not going to care about what happens to us. You want to know why some riots are occurring and some of the things that property damage? How long has it been that African Americans haven't been heard? I'm not saying that it's right, but I'm saying it's a fact of life. You're going to get pissed off and you're going to lash out unless you're heard. How can you expect other people to care if you don't care? Right? That's what I'm talking about with interdependence. There's so many examples of it. But I'm hoping you can see that. I'm hoping you can see that your actions carry consequences, that your actions affect other people, and they can affect other people to the good, or they can affect other people to the bad. And what I'm telling you is it's all your choice. It's up to you. You're leaving 10th grade and you're moving on and you're moving to be juniors. You're halfway through, most of you anyway, with your high school careers. If you think it's gone by quickly, next 2 years will go by like that. You'll be applying to colleges, and then what? One of the concerns that I have for youth today is I think that they're, not everybody, but some of them are really feeling a sense of entitlement. I deserve this. I deserve that. I should get this. Why? Nobody owes you anything. The world has been cruel in the past. It's much less cruel, but still cruelty appears. If you go around life thinking that you deserve things just because you're you, things are going to be difficult for you. What are you going to give in order to get? And sometimes you're going to give without the idea of getting. It's called love. You give with no expectation. Dr. King talked about that in that very speech. The idea of loving everybody, not in an amorous way, but just of loving other human beings. Being willing to make certain sacrifices for others so that they may benefit everyone. You're not entitled to anything. But in our country, we still have a meritocracy. If you work hard, if you show love and compassion for others, if you take into consideration the needs of others and try to meet those, not to say you can't have arguments and fights and whatever about that in between, but if you do that, I think you'll have an enriched life. But you have to take the first step. You're the one that has to reach out. You're the one that has to take the initiative, take the bull by the horns, take the first step, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't happen automatically, magically. Please keep that in mind. When you see the events that unfold over the next few months and we come back to school, I hope that for all of you that there's some growth. And what I mean by growth, I don't mean that you got 3 inches taller or that, your pipes got bigger because you were lifting or doing push-ups. I mean emotional growth. I mean intellectual growth. The kind of growth that transforms you from a child into an adult. This is the adult world we're going in. I hope the pandemic teaches us one thing. I hope it teaches us that we still have a lot of work to do in our country, but our country's worth it. And there is hope, and that any change that we want to see is in our hands. It's up to us. It's up to you. Rest over the summer, recharge the battery, come back ready to fight and scrap for everything that you want and everything that you love. I don't know if there's anything else I can add to that, so Romero, out.